There's been an increase in the listings, some by a ton, some just a bit, but it is also reflected in the price. And you can see Niagara-on-the-Lake has kind of tipped the scale of $1 million. I think that this gives a even better explanation of the COVID effect in March 2020. As you can see, the average days on market down by 57%. And then listings up by 61%. So I've talked about the summer 2022 games before. I just wanted to give everybody an idea of when I talked about that very modern building that's coming to Thorold. This is what it looks like.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, we catch up with Kayla, our realtor expert for the Niagara region. And today, Kayla's really going to dive deep into all the data. I know there's a lot of drama going on if you read the headlines, but it's important you guys focus on what actually matters, and that's the devil's in the details here. So let's focus on the data, what's going on with sales, what's going on with inventory, and we're going to hear all that and more from Kayla. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and I've got Kayla with us, our Niagara real estate expert. Hey, Kayla, how's it going?
Good, Matt. How are you?
Good. So before we jump into today's presentation, just how's the market? How's business? I'm assuming things are still relatively busy.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely still busy. The market's still busy. We're starting to see, dare I say, a slight shift just with more listings coming on. Which is good, a bit of a relief for buyers, of course, and sellers are still doing well, so that's good. But yeah, everything's good. Business is busy. All is well.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to jump into the data and kind of see what's going on in the Niagara St. Catharines market. 2021's been a very interesting year for real estate all around. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you've got on tap for us.
So similar to the previous presentations, I did the stats here. So I did month over month first, just because I think that this paints a more accurate picture of like what's going on. So you can see number of new listings. Feb 2021 was 831. March 2021, 1,471. So a pretty drastic increase, and that comes at this time of the year with the spring market and whatnot, but still a pretty impressive increase. And every single city had an increase, city, town, etc., had an increase. And then number of sales, Feb 21, 699, March 21, 1081. So again, big increase. With the increase of listings, there have also been an increase of sales. So we're still sitting in low inventory as we have been, just not quite to the extent that we were. And then the price, that's I think the take home is even with new listings, more and more sales, we're still seeing an increase in price month over month. And then another one would be the average days on market. Again, it's more so like median is like 6-7. But there was a decrease from 20 to 16. Yeah, and you can see like across the board, there's been an increase in the listings. Some by a ton, some just a bit, but it is also reflected in the price. And you can see Niagara-on-the-Lake has kind of tipped the scale of $1 million, which we hadn't seen in the previous presentation. So that's an interesting one. And then as well, St. Catharines, on the better side of 600,000. So definitely interesting stats across the board month over month, and apparently still increasing in price.
Yeah, obviously there's still a lot of demand. So it's great to see the number of new listings growing, but the number of sales definitely seems to be keeping pace overall. In regard. So it'll be interesting to see how the market adapts and whether we really do start to see some inventory accumulate or whether this is just kind of a short-term blip.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I took away from this was February was obviously quite busy and stuff, but we're just continuously seeing an increase in the interest in the Niagara market. And then if I go to year over year, I'm going to basically put out a disclaimer that March 2020 was when COVID hit. So these stats are very skewed. We were in lockdown, I think it was March 13th. So that's when the real estate market all but kind of shut down for a little bit because no one really knew exactly what we were dealing with. With that said, the numbers, there's been obviously massive increase from listings and sales again. The interesting thing here, I think, is in 2020, there wasn't a huge difference in listings. I mean, there is, but not a ton. But the sales, because as of like when March 13th hit, we didn't really know what we were allowed to do, what was going to be closed, which wasn't. But the benchmark price again has gone up drastically. This is tough data because of COVID, and like the average days on market as well. Obviously, there's a massive decrease in them, but here we are in semi lockdown again. So we'll see if that has an effect in April. But yeah, so while these are helpful stats, I don't think they're as helpful as the month over month. Just because of, what was taking place during March 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. But it still is kind of nice just as a snapshot to remind us of how aggressive the market has been over the last year.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's indicative of that for sure. And just the price increase across the board in every area. Like, again, as you can see, no area was left behind here. So yeah, that's the one thing I think you can take away from this data. The rest of it, again, is a bit tough because of the COVID situation at the time. And I mean, again, so again, I always present this, and I think that this gives a even better explanation of the COVID effect in March 2020. As you can see, the average days on market down by 57%, and then listings up by 61%, and sales up by basically 103% there. So that's obviously, again, because of that. But if you go to the bottom graph is month over month from Feb to March, and we're seeing a 54.6% increase in sales, 77% increase in listings. And then that price, despite those increases, still up by 7.3% month over month. So pretty impressive month for the Niagara Region real estate market, I would say. But yeah, so that's kind of the data laid out as I always present it. And I wanted to. Matt, do you have any questions before I move on?
No, I definitely appreciate the disclaimer, just that, March and April 2020 were unusual years. So I think both this month and next month's year over years aren't going to be quite as valuable as the month over month. But again, month over month definitely still shows us which direction this market appears to be headed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know people liked this. I had a lot of comments on, what these stats show. So I brought back January 2021 just to kind of give everybody a snapshot again. So this is for the whole Niagara region. And it basically, what it lays out is that there were on average 21.47 showings per listing. And again, of course, some listings got 100 showings and some got none, but on average, that's what it was. And 3 offers per sale. And again, with the caveat of some got much more than that, some didn't get any. But I just wanted to present this because you're hearing time and time again, it's shifting, we're moving out of a seller's market. It is shifting, but I would argue that this data so this is for March, would say we're still in a seller's market because we're looking at about 17 showings per listing and 3 offers per sale. So it's about the exact same thing across the board. And again, this is only from Broker Bay. These are listings in Broker Bay, but it does give a good snapshot of what's taken place. So I just wanted to show that. I know people like the data laid out in kind of different ways, but the showings that are taking place are still like out of this world, like 21,618 showings for, 1,228 new listings. That's pretty substantial. So if you're listing your house, you can expect to be pretty busy, I would think. So I just wanted to, bring that back and kind of compare, because we're, as we move on in the year, it'll be nice to look back and see kind of where we're landing now.
Absolutely.
And then, all right, so I went a bit of a different way this presentation. So this is just a current opportunity that's in St. Catharines. It's a bit unique. So recently I've had a few people reach out that have small businesses that are looking to obtain somewhere where they can work and live, an alternative house hacking, I guess. So this actually would provide that and more, I guess. So the zoning allows for several different businesses. There is a small business in there now. There is a 1-bedroom apartment at the back, and there is also a bachelor apartment in the basement. So 3 different spaces there, 3 baths, 2 kitchens, 1 bed, obviously because the one's a bachelor. But what I find attractive, one, is this has been up for a bit, so maybe there's some room on the price. 2, there is a solar there's a solar panel contract. So I haven't seen the contract, but usually those come with some benefits, as well as the current owners basically gutted everything. And you can see it's in there, updated the HVAC, electrical, ductwork, plumbing, doors, several windows. The basement was done by Omni Basement. So you're dealing with a reputable company, 4-car driveway. So they've done a lot. It's a decent sized space, and if you're looking to operate a business, it's in a great location. It's on Niagara Street. So yeah, I just wanted to point something a little bit out of the norm out, just in case there is someone out there that's running a small business that doesn't want a ton of overhead and also wants to collect some rental income. Maybe in the basement or in the back, depending on where you would want to live. So yeah, and they also made the main floor walls removable so they can be converted. Either you want your apartment bigger or you want your space bigger.
Gotcha.
So just a bit of a unique little situation, but I wanted to.
And then, so for perspective, it looks like, I was just looking, but I don't think they stated what the rents were for the apartments, but just to kind of give perspective for people, what would you consider fair market rents for like a bachelor or a 1-bedroom in this area?
Yeah, so the like a nice 1-bed in the area, you could, and again, of course, this is dependent on the size. I don't know the breakdown of like the front and the back. We've seen, 1,000 to 1,400, and then for a bachelor, anywhere from 8 to 1,000 and that's being fairly conservative in my experience. So I think that there is, and these are nice, renovated. I don't know exactly what these ones look like, but I still see potential. If you're buying even at 5, you're operating your business, you're generating income that way, and you're also generating income from either one or the other or both.
Yeah, it's an interesting property, especially, if you were able to get those market rents. For a small business owner, that's a very helpful income helper, right? That's going to cover a big chunk of your monthly expenses. And then I guess, have to look into the solar panels, but that seems like potentially a little added bonus as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. So that I just wanted to kind of bring to anyone's attention who might be looking for an opportunity like that. It's there. And then moving on to another opportunity. So this is bigger thinking, I guess. So this is the new police station that was built in what would be considered, bordering the worst area in St. Catharines, which is Queenston. Okay. So you can see, the picture's not great, but it's a super modern building. All the parking is at the back here. And they just did a really, really, really good job with it. And one thing, again, a new building in a bad area doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn around. But St. Catharines, as an example, when they started to bring these types of buildings to the downtown core, we saw things start to turn around. So downtown St. Catharines has, over the last 10 to 15 years, I'd say, has gone from not the best to it is actually quite nice. There's a bunch of trendy restaurants, Performing Arts Center, the Meridian Center, etc. This may be the start of that. You would have to think, if you have an area full of police officers, that some of the criminal activity that takes place in the area would have to find elsewhere to go, because obviously they're at there's some risk there for them. And just a modern building like this in the area, you could potentially see some people doing stuff with their buildings as they see these ones start to improve. There's also something being built just over here. I want to say it's a food development of sort. So just a few different things happening in an area that hasn't really seen much in recent years. So I think that that's a good sign. Mm-hmm. And for those people either that own in Queenston that, might be considering selling because of that, or people that have been avoiding Queenston because, again, it comes with a reputation and lower rents and, higher risk, this might just be a bit of opportunity on the horizon for that if you are willing to take on the risk now. Could potentially pay off in the future, just like those people who own downtown St. Catharines, who are seeing a big return at the moment because they were willing to take on a risk. So just wanted to point that out, that has happened. It is done. They are working out of there now. So yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. I always love kind of seeing, what's going on in the local neighborhoods and what's changing. I know for myself too, and I don't know whether it's specific to this neighborhood, but here in London, oftentimes one of the best signs that a community might start turning around is when there's an active Facebook group community, or sometimes we've got like the local business improvement associations, the local BIAs. And so I know here in the Old East Village, it's a neighborhood that very much feels very similar to what you were describing. It was often considered on the wrong side of Adelaide Street, which was this big divider in London. And then you had the large police station right on the corner of Adelaide and Dundas. And for a while, the area really struggled. But over time, that business improvement association, you started to see the small businesses start investing a little bit more into their storefronts. And then a lot of those small business owners started moving into the area because they wanted to be close to their business. And you can really, if you're paying attention to these small trends, start to see a neighborhood transform in front of your eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is, so they did this police station, and then there's a few shops over here that have been doing some work on them, on the storefronts, just like you said. So, you have to kind of fit with what's in your neighborhood. And when, the government comes and dumps that type of money into it, I think it kind of prompts, other people to do the same. And I think, exactly like you said, like there are small businesses popping up just kind of over here. There's like a new lash store, and there's a new shawarma place, etc. So I think with time, there's probably some opportunity here. And again, it just goes back to what's your risk level that you're willing to take on as an investor. And if it's there, then potentially this might be an area for you to pick something up at a low price and hopefully hold on to it for a while and see, reap the benefits of stuff like this happening in the city.
Yeah, really appreciate that, Kayla.
All right. And then another one. So I've talked about the summer 2022 games before. I just wanted to give everybody an idea of when I talked about that very modern building that's coming to Thorold. This is what it looks like. So it's already been mostly built. I drove by there the other day. They are still, they're working on it all the time, but I did want to give everybody an idea that when I said it was modern, it absolutely is. And it's close to Brock. And this kind of couples with another opportunity that I think people are discounting with COVID. So a lot of the students obviously aren't here right now because Brock is operating primarily online at the moment, like every school. However, I actually just finished my master's at Brock, so I still get the emails and stuff, and they are intending to go back in September. Again, who knows for sure, but that's the intended date at the moment. And you have this, so you have the summer 2022 games, which are in August of next year. I think there might be an opportunity right now to pick up some of those student houses that, if student houses are an area that you invest in, because there is going to be a demand when the students come back, whenever that is. And this is in August. So if you have a situation where your students are there from, September to April and they move out, could you then Airbnb it to all the people that are going to be here for the games, potentially? And then, so that was just like a twofold opportunity. And I did want to show everyone obviously what it looked like, because it's pretty exciting. Again, Thorold is, has never seen anything other than Brock quite as modern as this.
Yeah, again, really appreciate this perspective. And that to me really just highlights the value of, a local realtor expert, right? Like you're paying attention, you understand what's going on, but you're also driving these streets, these neighborhoods, you're familiar with the people and the demographics occurring there. And again, I think that insight is really one of the competitive advantages we need as real estate investors during these like interesting market times, right? I think the data being focused on what's really going on, boots on the ground. Because again, right now, I think that
if you're starting to see small businesses open, I think anywhere in Canada right now, that's a sign of some pretty robust opportunities, because there's a lot of businesses clearly struggling. So again, just to, have that perspective, be driving the streets, or have your local expert driving the streets for you, can really help give you the confidence or insight that, hey, there is some traction here.
Yeah, and honestly, like if you weren't going to Brock, there's really nothing in this area. Like, well, there's a Tim Hortons and a McDonald's and a few little shops, but the big driver to this area for people, again, that don't work for the government, et cetera, because there are a few buildings there, you wouldn't even know that this existed. It's kind of like out of the way, off the beaten path. I take this way home to take the back roads, basically. So if you weren't going to Brock to visit or whatever, you probably wouldn't know this is here. And to that, there are a bunch of government buildings in this area, and they also just completely redid the front of the Niagara Region building. So you're seeing, a lot of money come into the region, which I talked about previously. So it's just kind of a good sign in general. But yeah, so this, I just wanted to share, one, because I think it's super neat, and two, because it kind of indicates, an upwards trend as far as infrastructure goes, as well as the, the dual student rental Airbnb opportunity that might present itself when the students go back. And then moving on. Okay, so I'm going to geek out hard here. This, I think, could be a very helpful resource for an investor.
This is awesome. I always love sharing resources with the audience.
Yeah, it's again, super nerd here, but I'm just gonna go into here. So one of the things I love that so it's called Niagara Region Navigator. You can basically look up anything in the Niagara region, as far as like if I wanted to see all the streets, it'll show me that. Now it's not, there we go. Property lines, like everything's here. You can measure different things if you go into tools, point to point, measure different, like if you wanted to make sure that the property line was accurate, you could measure that. And then one of the other things that I really do like about it, because one of the things investors ask, if I'm buying here, are there schools nearby? Are there like what resources are nearby, et cetera? So if you go here and you just click down, you can basically find out everything or is there a church nearby if some people are interested in that? And I just want to, where is it? So childcare, and you can see the green dots that it added. And then as well, like it'll line out the transportation, any arenas, beaches, campgrounds. So let's say you're looking at Airbnb and you want to know where the beaches are.
Yeah, this is excellent.
Right there. There's going to be a few more here. Golf courses, if you're a golf enthusiast. The wineries, because a lot of the Airbnb investors are concerned about that. They're the grapes showing up over here.
Yeah.
So it literally has just about everything that you could, that you could want to know about where you're investing in here. The fire station, even if you're doing your insurance, something as easy as how far is the closest fire station, you can find it out on here. So the other thing that I wanted to point out about this is if you're wondering about where the government is spending their money in the city, you can actually look up their budget points. So it pulls, let's just hope this works, do that. And then it'll allow you, it's not allowing me now, but you can actually look up, anyways, you can look up each individual, like if you're looking for transportation, and it'll line out every
interesting.
budget
Yeah,
line.
I've never seen that such a robust system before. That's really appreciate
so you can see
highlighting
it just highlighted all those dots. Each color is for a different budget line, and you can actually lay it out like 2021, 2022. So if you're curious on what's going to happen, they're also in there, because those obviously get planned way ahead of time. And then the one I think that would be most useful for many investors, just based on what I get asked, is the schools. So you can see all these little flags are schools, and you can click on them. It'll tell you what it is, and you can see just how many are in the area that you're investing. So wanted to share that again, something that I used to use when I worked for the government, and has now kind of become twofold useful for the real estate world, but it'll just give you a much better insight into the areas that you're investing in, what's happening in them, there's community resources, libraries, et cetera, that you can look up. and as well those budget lines, just to give you an idea of what's to come. Because there are several areas in St. Catharines, as an example, where they've knocked something down. It's kind of just an empty site right now. So what's going there? And if you look through those budget lines, you are able to find that information. Obviously, if you don't want to do the legwork, you can always ask, your local realtor. I'm happy to answer those questions. I've done the research already. But if you're like me and you like to kind of dig a little bit deeper into the data, into what's happening, here's your resource to do so.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really appreciate you sharing that, because it can be so hit or miss when we're looking at local cities or municipal websites. So that looks to be one of the most robust ones. I don't think I've ever seen one with like the budget spending. Like,
yeah,
I could definitely lose a couple nights just playing around there trying to learn exactly where they're spending their money and what's going to happen, because that really can have huge consequences to portfolio, right? We talk about real estate being location all the time, and understand what's going on in your exact streets and what government spending may or may not occur there. Very valuable.
And to that, there's a whole bunch of different water main replacement projects that are planned, road projects. So if not that those have a huge impact, but it can impact your enjoyment while you're living there, if you're on the street or if you live close by. So yeah, it's definitely important to know those things. And one last thing I wanted to point out, there are a lot of old houses in the Niagara region. And one thing that I thought was very interesting, you can get this list, but if you're looking, because heritage homes have specific things that can and can't be done to them from an investing standpoint, there are designated heritage and it lines out all the houses for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so this does exist in the list form, but if you're like me and you'd rather see the data presented this way, it's definitely helpful to be able to pull that information without having to contact the city or something like that. You can just do it yourself and then obviously pursue with the city if you have further questions, but it's definitely a good starting point.
Yeah, really appreciate this. And again, really want to encourage anyone that's looking to buy or invest in the Niagara region, definitely need to check out this website. That's absolutely amazing. Appreciate you sharing that with us, Kayla. And before we wrap up here, just for anyone that's, maybe they've been sitting on the sidelines right now from a real estate perspective, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Recently, OFC announced some changes to the qualifying process for people looking to buy a house. Any thoughts on how that may impact the Niagara real estate market, or do you think it will?
So, to preface that, you're speaking about the stress test, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that only will affect people who are putting 20% down or more. So I think that that's been kind of miscommunicated, not just by the news, just because you see obviously the headlines that are saying, oh, stress test coming, whatever. But yeah, so it's kind of twofold, because on one hand, it's not supposed to come in till, I believe, June 1st.
Yeah.
So that might add fuel to a already pretty large fire, because you have people that are going to be able to buy with 4% less purchasing power on average, if they are going with the over 20% non-insured mortgages. So yeah, it may force people or encourage people to buy before then. So even with these, more listings that are coming out, we're going to see more people who maybe weren't as motivated before, seeing that they're going to be able to buy for, buy less. And that could, impact the market to be as competitive as it has been. But on the other side, with more listings, I do think that there is a bit more opportunity. Some houses, I would say previously when a house was holding offers, you would just kind of assume that it was going to go way over asking because that was the trend. Now we're seeing that there's a few more houses that they're holding offers, maybe not getting what they thought that they were going to get, and flipping to just listing without holding offers at the price that they want. So I think that there's still definitely opportunity, but I would say that we may see over the next few months more competition than we're seeing right now since that announcement, because it does put people in a bit of a less advantageous point with what their buying power is.
Yeah, appreciate that insight. I definitely think we could see more pressure applied to the market because of it.
Yeah.
We're coming into what seemed like it was already going to be a hot spring market. So it'll be interesting to see how this all develops. But for anyone watching this video, if you guys are interested in investing in the Niagara, St. Catharines area, buying real estate, we'll throw up all of Kayla's contact information in the video description down below. Really want to encourage you guys to reach out to her. Again, it's so important, I think, at this point in time more than ever before, that you be dialed into the data, you really focus on what it is you're trying to accomplish as a real estate investor or buying your first property. I don't think it's going to be so easy for people to get hijacked by their emotions in this market. Yeah. And it's important that they've got someone on their side, on their team, that's going to be that voice of reason and help them navigate that. So if you guys are looking for that in St. Catharines area, really want to encourage you to reach out to Kayla. Again, just really appreciate you breaking down all this great information and sharing that amazing resource as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. It's been fun as always. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer them, even, investors or not. Yeah, and happy to see interesting to see what next month brings.
Thanks, Kayla.
Thanks again to Kayla for taking the time to shoot this video. If you guys want to get in contact with her, all her contact information is in the video description down below. Really encourage you guys to jump over and reach out to her. And it's important you reach out before you actually need to reach out. Build relationships, not just transactions. It's a two-way street, guys. It's really important that you reach out to these realtors. You start building your power team before you decide to submit an offer. That way you can make sure you've got the right people in your corner. So reach out to Kayla if you're interested in buying Niagara, and we'll see you guys next month.